Here we go. Hi, Sakara Lights. Welcome. I see some familiar faces starting to trickle in here. We'll give it just another moment for our community to join and get settled. In the meantime, we welcome you to turn your cameras on if you feel comfortable, even if it's just for a few moments now, so we can make eye contact, see each other for a bit, and really connect. Well, hi, Sakara Lights. Welcome. I'm Zoe. I'm the head of community here at Sakara. And I really do recognize a lot of faces from our Slack community that's happening right now during 30-day reset and through some of our other events. And if we haven't met before, it's so lovely to meet you today. Please find a way to connect with me and with each other. You can message me on Slack anytime. And in addition to our Slack, tonight we do have this Zoom chat going. So I invite everyone to write in, let us know where you are, let us know how you're feeling, how you're showing up today by sharing a word that is resonating with you. Here at Sakara, we're on a mission to transform lives, and community, connection, education are all really critical pieces of this. Living the Sakara life goes beyond what you eat. It's what you read, what you listen to, what you absorb, the people you surround yourself with. And with the Sakara community and our events and our podcast, we really want to give you those tools to empower you to be in the driver's seat of your own health. So that is what is bringing us here today. I personally am on the final week of my 30-day reset, kicked off in the beginning of September. And wherever you are on your 30-day reset journey, I hope that you are showing up today feeling nourished and whole and transformed and grateful for everything that Sakara can offer us. We're so honored that you are choosing to spend this time with us, that we're joining in community here. And we can't wait for this really special conversation tonight with Danielle, Whitney, and Dr. Uma. So with that, I'm so thrilled to turn it over to Sakara Life co-founders and CEOs, Danielle and Whitney.
Hi, everyone. Happy Thursday. How's everyone feeling? I like all these words. Excited, grateful, hopeful, engaged.
Pumped.
Pumped.
That's a good word. Jill, yeah.
Love it. Indeed.
Happy. First week. Welcome, first weekers. 4
Wow,
days
4 days in. Awesome. Welcome.
We have people, in all different levels of their journey with us. Some people are joining us. This is their first time ever doing Sakara. Maybe you're just 4 days in. Other people, like we'll be hearing from Andrea later. She, I believe, has been with us for 5 years now. So, has been doing this a few more times than others. But wherever you are in your journey, we're so excited that you're here. So excited that you've been dedicating this time, that you've decided to dedicate this time to your health, to your nutrition, to your body, to your spirit, to replenishing that cup, and that you're showing up for each other here tonight, being part of this community.
And it's such a beautiful reminder, even for me and Whit, who eat this way all the time, but to be surrounded by a community of people who are on the reset, who are doing it with us. Like, I'm already inspired, and we're just a couple minutes in and we've only, just started the chat. Like, it truly just means so much to be around a group of humans who also want to sit in the driver's seat of their health, are taking action, are feeling empowered. I personally feel so inspired. So for those of you who have been with us, this part. For those of you who are new, welcome. We love to start with our individual stories. We try and keep them pretty brief. If you want kind of a more in-depth version of our stories, please refer to our podcast, where we had a full hour to really delve into what brought us here and what brought us to this work, and why it's so meaningful for both Whitney and I to continue on this mission to transform lives. So we are here today because this food completely changed our lives, transformed our bodies. And, I say it saved our lives in many ways. And we came at it for different reasons and hit very different rock bottoms, yet, found a solution together. So Whitney and I have known each other for a long time now. I don't know how many years now, Whit. We've known each other since we were in about 7th grade. We grew up together in Sedona, Arizona. I came here to New York City, which is where I am now, just one of our headquarters here. And I came here to study medicine. So I studied pre-med. I worked in a hospital with a cardiologist for several years, interning. And I really hit rock bottom because I had been yo-yo dieting for several years, since sadly about the age of 9, and now I have a young daughter, and it breaks my heart just understanding how young that is. I tried every single diet under the sun, from, Atkins, blah, 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 all the way to like the grapefruit diet, all the way to I was vegan, I was vegetarian, I was all of it, and really seeking a means to control how I felt, how I looked. My worth was wrapped up in how I looked. I had an awful relationship to my plate, and that led me to several gut issues, which were all labeled kind of under this umbrella of IBS. No doctor knew what to do. No doctor kind of even really asked what I was eating. I felt desperate. I felt sad. I felt like my life was out of control. And then to kind of like overlap all of that, I was working in medicine, and I was seeing patients at the cardiologist who were suffering from late stage lifestyle diseases. So things like, diabetes, it's cardiovascular disease, et cetera. And, I had this epiphany where I thought, I've been in this work now for over 5 years. I've never taken a single nutrition course. We're dealing with patients who have lifestyle diseases, and no one's talking about their lifestyle. And I need such a lifestyle overhaul. I want to understand how to transform my body and my health. And then I want to help these people before it gets to late stage lifestyle diseases. I want to be on the preventative side, on the side of reversing preventable diseases. And so I switched my path, and I decided to study nutrition. And it was really in that kind of like personal rock bottom space where I felt so out of control in my body. No one I knew, none of the doctors or health practitioners I was working with knew how to help me. And I really wanted to take my health into my own hands. And luckily, I was not at rock bottom alone. I was there with my best friend who was also working through her reckoning as well.
Yeah, just so grateful that we had each other in that moment, really. Yeah. But so my rock bottom came after over a decade of battling with cystic acne, big red cysts all over my face that were really painful, but they also really hurt, my confidence, my emotional health, my mental health and well-being. It affected how I showed up in my career. I thought about it every time I walked into the office as a young adult, starting my career. I had moved to New York to work on Wall Street. I thought that was going to be my path. Boy, was I wrong, but and grateful it's not. But it was affecting my confidence in my career, in my love life. If I wouldn't go on a date without wearing makeup. It affected even my hairstyle. I chose which haircut I would have, maybe some bangs and things to cover my skin and my face. And it started to seep into who I was. And I tried literally everything out there on the market that I could get my hands on that promised to change my skin and fix me. I bought everything off the infomercials. I saw all these different doctors, dermatologists that would put me on rounds and rounds of antibiotics. I kept a Z-Pack in my dorm room desk drawer because, to just take, if I had a breakout, to take a Z-Pack. And that's like what you would take if you had pneumonia. It's like a big antibiotic bomb for your gut. I did Accutane, which is a really serious drug. I had to have my liver tested every week or every other week to make sure that my lipid levels were safe, that my liver was still healthy. They put me on Prozac because suicide could be a potential side effect, and had me be on multiple forms of birth control and sign an agreement that if I were on the chance to get pregnant, that I would go through an abortion because my baby would come out with serious birth defects. And they show you the picture to scare you in that moment as well. Like, that's how serious of a drug and a place that I was willing to go to try and cure my skin. And I did it, and it didn't work. And I tried all these things and they didn't work, and they didn't work. And I was so frustrated, and I felt like there was no solution out there. And kind of my really rock bottom moment came from sitting in a dermatologist's chair on the Upper East Side of Manhattan. I picked him out of one of the magazines, you know, he looked like he had all the answers. And I was sitting there, and he just wanted to hand me another prescription for a mega round of antibiotics. And I said, I'm not doing that. I already did it, and it didn't work for me. And he said, well, then you have to do Accutane again. And I said, I don't want to do that either. You know, I was in my early 20s and thinking about fertility and, you know, becoming really an adult. And if it weren't a safe place to house a baby, if my body wasn't going to be a safe place for a baby to live, why would it be a safe place for me to live? And I just remember sitting there with this voice screaming at me, like, don't do it. It's not the answer. You need to go inside, find the root cause that is creating these symptoms. And so in that moment, I turned to my best friend, and we were living together. And we realized that we both needed a change, that we had hit this moment that there was no continuing the way that we were continuing. And luckily we had each other to turn to start to put the pieces into place, to turn back to our Sedona roots of what we had learned growing up from childhood around the power of nature, the power of food as medicine, and also the really exciting modern cutting edge nutrition science that Danielle was learning in nutrition school at that point. And we started to put these philosophies and all of this information together to create a program that was just for ourselves. And we were cooking ourselves, we were making the food for ourselves and for each other. And it was so transformative. Like for the first time, my skin started to clear up, the inflammation started to go down. And I realized, I had this big aha moment that I didn't have a skin problem, I had a gut problem. And that my fem ecology issues were also tied to the gut, and those started to go away too at the same time that my skin was clearing, and my anxiety started to go away also at the same time that my skin was clearing, that it all stemmed from this root cause of my gut and my nutrition. And Danielle, you had your own aha moments.
Yeah, I mean, I still have them, but I'd say the big one at the early onset was just I'd spent a lifetime thinking food was the enemy, and I shifted from, you know, food is there to help me feel better, and it's actually about getting enough nutrients every single day. And we'll get into that with Dr. Uma, which I'm so excited to have her here, and really get to the core of like, what does it mean to nourish? Like, I had been on every diet. I read every single diet book, and not one book taught me how to build a body that I felt really good in. It was all about, you know, how you look or abs, etc. It was never building a body that you feel empowered in. And I realized that's what I was after. And that involves having a healthy relationship to your plate, eating for gut health, and really nourishing. And so, you know, we love to share our stories because, you know, even 10 years in, because it started with our stories, and our stories are what helped us transform one more life, because our stories spoke to someone, and then that person's story spoke to someone, and then those people had their own transformative stories and Sakara stories that they shared. So it's meaningful to us because we never thought that we'd be sitting here talking to people about, you know, our kind of like core insecurities that we had early on, our toxic relationship to food, etc. That was like the thing I never thought I'd be talking about. but talking about it and airing it out and working through it has been, I've realized, it's an act of service, because I've helped at least one other person see themselves in me and understand that they have the power to transform their lives too. So we ask all of you to share your Sakara stories, because it is an act of service. Someone will see themselves in you and feel inspired by your transformation, feel inspired by your story. And I feel like it's the greatest gift that we can give each other. So we're so fortunate to be joined tonight by Andrea. She has been a client of ours for 5 years. I had the privilege of sitting next to her at a lunch this summer where I got to hear much of her Sakara story. So she's so lovingly offered to share her Sakara story this evening to all of you. She's also you're on your 3rd week of the 30-day reset. Is that right?
Finishing up. Yes.
And so is along the ride with us and is here to share your Sakara story. So Andrea, thank you so much for being here tonight. We're so grateful.
Thank you, Danielle and Whitney. I'm so inspired by you guys, and thank you for asking me to share my story. My journey and my start to finding you wasn't, I should say, fortunately, I didn't have a rock bottom moment. I told you guys, I found you on a dare. I was working with a trainer. For many years, I was in the fitness industry and I was a fitness instructor, and I was working with a trainer, and he had dared me to go plant-based and to find a healthier lifestyle, not only with what I was doing for my body, with lifting weights and cardiovascular, but he said also, and it really resonated with me, to find something that nourishes you on the inside as well. And to support all of this hard work that you do and all this that you put your body through, you should be honoring your body by feeding it the best way that you possibly can, both mentally and physically. And through another platform, I discovered you guys. And I remember, and for years prior to being a Sakara client, I had tried cleanses and juicing, and I had a juicer on my own and things like that. And I've done I countless times of the level 2, and the detox, it is nourishing. It's not deprivation. And that's one thing through all of these years that I have found, and which has kept me so consistent and so loyal, is there is no deprivation. It is a lifestyle. It's not a diet. It's not something that for a quick fix. It really is a commitment to yourself, to embark on this journey of wellness. And the fact that you have not only turned your beautiful brainchild of feeding yourself into a community of like-minded people, that you are inspiring us in so many different ways, from not only from what we eat, but what we think and what we talk about, and the language that we use when we think about ourselves is really just amazing and inspiring. And it has been so wonderful to be really a part of this throughout the years.
Thank you so much. And what would you say has been the biggest change or transformation in these 5 years? And did you expect it, or are there unexpected transformations as well?
I mean, I really thought I was going to be an in and out detox, cleanse kind of girl that would come in and come out as needed. And as I said, it really became less about the quick fix and more about, I really just feel good inside and out. And I feel better when I am nourishing my body and honoring myself, both physically and mentally. And it's just a better way of life. I really just feel better. And as I said, I thought I would just be detoxing outside. I get meals for years I've been getting I love my box every Wednesday. I mean, every Thursday and Monday morning, I look forward to it. And now I love that I can adjust my menus if there are my favorite things. I mean, the things that you have done over the years to make it even easier and more accessible has been, it really, there is no excuse. And that was something that really convinced me to also to stay, is that it's so easy. It's actually harder not to, and it's harder to not be on this path, and it's harder to opt out, because I just feel better and I love it, and you keep evolving and growing and finding new ways really to make it so user friendly, client friendly. Again, it works, and it's, you're so successful, and all of us are here because we feel it, not only believing it, we feel it.
Well, we're so happy that we can be there for you, Andrea. And, really it is the stories from all of you all who keep us motivated to keep going, to know that we're able to keep you fueled and energized while you're helping so many people in their own transformations, and also to stay healthy. So
Yeah, and I feel like what I hear from you is, is so beautiful, which is like the transformation was, I thought, I'd be like an occasional like detoxer and dieter, and I became someone who decided to like prioritize my health for the long term. And I resonate so much with that story. And, you said it so beautifully that the more you do this, the more you want to do this, because you're no longer willing to like give up how good you feel. And so it's never a diet. It's like, that's why Eat Clean Play Dirty is such, a fundamental of ours. It's like, we eat this way most of the time, and then we say yes to other things whenever we want, and there's no rules. So thank you for that beautiful reminder and for inspiring all of us with your story.
Thank you. And again, thank you for your commitment really to all of us.
Thank you.
Well, next, without further ado, let's bring in Dr. Uma Naidoo. First, do we want to talk a minute about, I can read her bio, and then we can talk about why we brought her onto our Sakara Science Council, why we're so excited that we have her here with us tonight. But Dr. Uma Naidoo is a Harvard-trained nutritional psychiatrist, a personal chef, and a nutritional biologist. She's also the author of the best-selling book, This Is Your Brain on Food. Dr. Naidoo founded and directs the first and only hospital-based nutritional psychiatry service in the USA. She's the director of nutritional and metabolic psychiatry at Massachusetts General Hospital and director of nutritional psychiatry at the MGH Academy while serving on the faculty at Harvard Medical School. She's currently developing the first and only CME-based educational program at Massachusetts General Hospital / Harvard to educate other clinicians globally about nutrition for brain health. And she is also on the Sakara Science Council. So we are so excited to have you here with us tonight. You really do pair the science and the spirit. You are deep in the research, but also you're a chef, so bringing it to life, from the knowledge to the physical, and then teaching others how to replicate that and teach it to others.
Yeah, and I'd say, Dr. Uma, you're one of very few humans on the planet that sits at the intersection of nutrition and mental health, and it's one of the many reasons that we asked you to join us on this mission, because there are very few of you, and we're so grateful for the work and the research that you are doing and putting out into the world. So thank you, and thank you for being here tonight.
Thanks so much, both Daniel and Whitney. I love what you're doing, and I always enjoy interacting with all of you and the community. So thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
Well, I thought a good place to start would be for you to just explain, what is nutritional psychiatry? What does it mean, and how is it different than normal psychiatry?
It's really the use of healthy whole foods and nutrients to improve your mental well-being. And it doesn't exclude the use of the very important psychotherapies and sometimes needed medications. I do sometimes prescribe medications, and they can be life-saving for certain individuals. But I feel that more people are seeking solutions outside of that box, and that's a very important niche that nutritional psychiatry fills. And besides which, it's we eat every day, we eat several meals a day. Why not do it in the best way possible? As you referenced earlier, maybe not every day, but most of the time. And
Amazing. So when people come to see you, are there certain tests that you look at around nutritional deficiencies, or are you starting with the lifestyle?
I like to start with lifestyle before we go into testing. And quite often, it's more like a tertiary care clinic. So individuals come to me by referral, and they also have had several tests that maybe they've been working with a gastroenterologist, a primary care doctor. But I like to actually talk to someone first, because the only way to really hear someone's story, like we just heard, all three of the really beautiful stories now, is to understand someone. And in that conversation, I often will pick up either a pattern or a food that they're relying on, or perhaps some difficulty that they're experiencing. And that part of the evaluation is very important before all the scientific tests and everything else that goes into it.
And you're obviously very familiar with all the amazing foods that, all of us have been eating for, 1 to 3 weeks, everything from, lots and lots of greens to healthy fats to superfoods. Can you help us understand how choices like that equal, mental health and can help people dealing with mental health issues or help keep our brain healthy?
I know, because I was going to say sometimes this is difficult to kind of wrap our brains around, excuse the pun, but of where you're eating food and it's going through your digestive tract and you're thinking of your stomach down here and how is it helping your brain up here. And so I think, we have a lot of really smart, well-educated Sakaralites who probably know about the gut-brain axis, but I would love, to dive in and help, or for you to dive in and help connect the dots.
Sure. It's a great question, because I like to sometimes make it super simple for people, but even as smart as they are, because we often overlook things. And that's the niche that nutritional psychiatry fills. And if we've ever had a headache, you might have taken a pill for your headache. And think about what we do. We swallow the pill, we have a sip of water, and we hope the headache goes away. But where does the pill act? It's actually acting in our brain, right? To relieve the tension or take away the pain. So in a similar way, what the gut microbiome research and the science of the gut and brain connection has taught us is that there's also a connection to the food that we eat. And this was not always known, but Hippocrates eons ago started to make this connection. But as you all know, in the Sakara community, we wanted the science to follow. And that has in the last decade and a half. So the gut and brain come from the exact same cells in the human embryo. They then divide up to form two organs which are far apart, but they remain connected by the vagus nerve. And I want you to think of the vagus nerve like a two-way text messaging system, communicating all the time around chemical messages. But then it's also important for us to know and understand that serotonin is often called the happiness hormone, and is what's contained in Prozac that you referenced, selective serotonin reuptake inhibitors, or SSRIs like Zoloft and others. But 90 to 95% of the serotonin receptors and serotonin production happens in the gut. So as we start to put all of this together, we realize that the gut is actually quite central to not just digestion, but it's these gut microbes are interacting with neurotransmitters, with the food, and all of that. And we start to piece these parts together. And when you reference the food that that everyone is eating in the program, leafy greens, for example, rich in fiber, but also rich in vitamin B9, which is folate. And research has been done on the fact that low folate in the body is associated with low mood. So just leaning into those leafy greens is really helpful for mental well-being. because it slowly builds up your folate levels and helps your mood. So it may be subtle. I think we all understand in the program that it's a marathon and not a sprint. It's about changing, our lifestyles and how critical that is in improving our nutrition. And I also wanted to say, Whitney, just like when you were suffering with your skin condition, there wasn't necessarily a connection that you thought was related to your gut, but you discovered that, right, in such an amazing way. And in a similar way, we don't usually make that connection with food and the brain. So it's
Yeah,
the skin, the gut is so central to the skin and so many other organs.
and I didn't realize that it was really the epicenter for all of those different things, for skin, for my hormones,
Yes.
for my anxiety. And I like, when it comes to anxiety, if somebody has anxiety, what types of foods do you recommend for that specific?
So one of the things I start with, especially for anxiety, because so many people are suffering with some elements of that these days, is I start to look at what are the things that they're leaning on that may not be the best for them. And some of those foods are things we overlook, like people, if they consume dairy, they turn to yogurts, but they turn to a fruited yogurt. And often people will say, well, I eat blueberry yogurt. And the issue is that the fruited blueberry yogurt has a ton of added sugar. So they're trying to be healthy, but there's so many things around food labels and nutrition that are just poorly represented and can lead us astray. So there's an example of something, or someone who's trying to cut back on sugar but drinking a lot of diet soda to make up for the soda that they've been drinking. And the artificial sweeteners in the diet soda could be setting off the anxiety. And there have been studies that have shown this, that the artificial sweeteners can be disruptive to the gut microbiome. So firstly, processed vegetable oils is another category, added and refined sugars, the wrong types of fats, many things that we actually associated with our waistline or with a family history of type 2 diabetes, things like that, but they're also related to conditions like anxiety. Once you start to identify those and tweak them a little bit, adding in foods, the leafy greens, so critical. Fiber with a diversity of plants for your gut, different colors, the plant polyphenols, different nutrients, vitamins, and minerals that come with those plants. Data has shown us that probably very few Americans eat enough fiber in their diet. So just having those plants as basic foods that you're eating is critical. An unusual one that people don't often think about is turmeric with a pinch of black pepper. I know that it's in many of the Sakara dishes, but turmeric has a good amount of evidence for improving anxiety, and you need just a little bit. Like you start with a quarter teaspoon a day with a pinch of black pepper, which activates the curcumin in turmeric. So those are just a few foods to start eating, and vitamin D rich foods are another. But you build from there, starting off with maybe those one or two habits that you don't realize may be worsening your anxiety.
I love that you talked about fiber, because that is something that we love to talk about here at Sakara. And we had this whole idea of like, how do we make fiber sexy? Like everyone wants to talk about protein.
And beautiful.
Like fiber really needs a press agent here. And how can we help out? And
we need to get the one that Greek yogurt got as their
or kale. Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
You know?
But the daily recommended amount is around 25 grams. And as you said, like over 80% of Americans are not even meeting that. And here at Sakara, you get 45, upwards of 50 grams sometimes of fiber every single day. And one thing that I think is so interesting is that similar to anything, whether it's any other macronutrient like protein or carbohydrates, like they are not all the same. So it's not like fiber is one category. You get different fibers from different plants that do different things in your gut. And so that's one of the reasons that variety is so important. And, you get so much variety here at Sakara. And so it just, as you're talking more and more about, the gut brain access and how that leads to, mental health and its connection to anxiety, et cetera. It's just like a reminder that all these things lead to gut health. It's not like one thing. So it's not like go get 25 grams of fiber and then we're good. Or like go get 30 different ingredients, by the way, is in a week what they recommend for gut variability. But at Sakara, you get over 170 different plant ingredients. So it's like it's never one thing, which I think is kind of sometimes what makes it tricky for people. Is like there's no like silver bullet, there's no one thing to do. And that's why we're here, is we're really ultimately trying to simplify it. And Whitney and I have this debate all the time. It's like, I study nutrition. I'm now getting my master's in functional medicine. Like, I love the science. I love nutrition science. I love what we're learning. I love reading the studies. And also sometimes I'm like, oh my God, we have no idea what we're talking about. Like how we take like a whole food and then dissect it to try and understand like what one, chemical does in a food in your body, when now we've not only taken it out of the food, but we're, just basically serving people, or, like it's so hard to isolate, and that's what science requires. And so even though we bring so much science to the program, our hope is also that we help you build so much body intelligence and so much intuition, because I was that person that was getting anxiety about trying to figure out what to eat. Like, so, it's like the roadmap can feel really daunting. And one of the things I love about you, Dr. Uma, is you really do attempt to simplify it and say, like, it doesn't have to be difficult. Like, just, start here, try adding, some turmeric to what you're doing. Like, there are these specific foods that we can just start to incorporate. You've never approached it by saying, never eat these foods. It's really like, what can we start to incorporate into your diet? And so I'm curious, because I know there has been a lot of research lately connected to mental health and the diet. And I feel like even a couple of years ago, that would have been, something that people didn't talk about. Like, I feel like your field of research is like, so, like, you're such a renegade. You're so kind of like, there's not a lot of people talking about this, and it's very new. And I know there's a recent study about dementia and inflammation. So what are you seeing in the latest research when it comes to food and mental health and brain health?
Thanks so much, Danielle. And I think, your what you bring in Sakara is very powerful as well, because just encouraging a plant predominant diet is really critical for health in general. And outside of that, people may eat other things, but I think you're absolutely right. It's not just the fiber. For example, the gut microbes interact with our emotions, so stress can actually affect them. And all of those things interact with our food and the rest of our bodies. What I'm noticing about the current state of mental health is the pandemic has left us, as we go into our third fall, very, very anxious, more depressed, and really almost a little bit unhinged. A lot of burnout in certainly in the first responders, but in all professions. And I think that the research is showing that food and inflammation are very closely linked. We used to think about inflammation in a different way not so long ago, but inflammation, especially in the gut, is being seen as underlying conditions like depression, anxiety, cognitive disorders, and more. So when the gut is inflamed, because of this gut-brain connection, you can develop neuroinflammation, and often the mechanism, and to your point, Daniel, we're always discovering things. So we never want to say, oh, this is the only mechanism. It's always, we're studying this, there's more research coming. But what we understand so far is that if your gut is inflamed and you have dysbiosis, the conditions like leaky gut develop, and then, your brain develops neuroinflammation. And that's where I see an uptick of symptoms that people have, conditions like anxiety, and also on the flip side, that's positive to help reduce things like neuroinflammation and improve cognition over time. You can eat differently. And sticking to the types of foods we've talked about is one way to do it. We also know that depression is on the rise, and anxiety and suicide in teenagers and younger adults. So we want to be super careful about how we're approaching our diet, because many people right now don't have immediate access to a therapist or a doctor. But what is one thing you can do right now? And I want to just preface this by saying if it's an emergency, of course, you have to go to the emergency room, see a doctor immediately. But if you're just struggling a little bit on your own, the things you can do is literally have the power at the end of your fork and start to eat healthier meals, include the nutrients we spoke about, and start your own sort of healing journey while you might be waiting to get into care.
And can I ask you, I have a lot of friends who saw a mental health professional, were prescribed SSRIs, and now don't know what to do because every psychiatrist they go to has like not been trained on how to get people off. And I know it's very complicated, but they want to take their health into their own hands. So if someone, like, I guess, how do you bring this knowledge that we're learning to, the health professionals around us? Because I would say a lot of them aren't in this research.
Well, I think it's often about partnering with the right people, companies that are bringing this forward, lifestyle companies. But also for my part of it, Danielle and Whitney, what I'm trying to do is really build out education for other clinicians. Because like you mentioned, being in pre-med, doctors are not learning nutrition. We know that 20% of medical schools have enough nutrition education, or even a few courses in nutrition. So the only way to bridge that gap is to start helping clinicians see more of the lifestyle aspects, which include nutrition, better sleep, so many other things, mindfulness, meditations, even hydration, exercise, all of that. And part of the work that I'm doing is building an educational program at Mass General to help train other clinicians to implement this in their practice. The only way I heard that they wanted it, that there was a hunger for this, was because when my book came out, clinicians wanted to know, well, what you're seeing, what you're doing, how can we do this? And that was encouraging to me because it's a way to then start to offer that education to some clinicians who can then start to grow this field. So I see nutritional psychiatry as being a very, very young sister brother of functional medicine, where we're partnering, but we're also growing. Right now, I'm sorry to say that most mental health clinicians are just not practicing this way, and I would like to encourage that, and I'm very open to hearing ideas about how to do that in a better way. But one of the ways I'm working on it is through nutrition and building a platform through social media around educational messaging.
And is there somewhere that people could go if they're looking to find somebody, a doctor who does have some of that nutritional knowledge? Is there somewhere people can go to find them?
So I'm sorry to say that right now we don't have the resources or that list, but that's something I'm trying to build as part of the program that we're doing. As we train more clinicians, we hope to sort of build up lists of resources where people can log in and then find a clinician in their area.
Great. I think that'll be so helpful and so necessary.
Important. It's really hard to find practitioners that you can trust, and as you said, like the conventional side of medicine can be life-saving and so important, and also you shouldn't have to choose between that and a more holistic approach.
Correct. And when someone's on a medication, it's hard because we don't know, we have to really be careful about tapering it. But my comment on that would, obviously I'm not that person's physician, but they can talk to their doctors about starting the lifestyle measures, maybe improving things in their nutrition, other aspects of lifestyle, while the doctor is working with them to taper the medication. So, when I gave you a definition earlier of nutritional psychiatry, can work hand in hand. But I feel like a lot of people could start, if they feel healthy enough and safe enough, start with their nutrition, start with these lifestyle pillars that you'll talk about that can help them to improve their mental well-being, but also their physical well-being.
And I think it's, I can connect the dots between how microbiome health and overall health can affect your mood and your brain chemicals and that type of thing. What about neuroplasticity? What about, that brain recall and keeping your brain young? Is that something that food and nutrition can also help with?
Yes, it can. Years ago, we thought that the brain couldn't change. And then science helped us understand that, yes, the brain can change. And so we now know that, if you are keeping active, if you are, say, playing a musical instrument, exercising, which helps oxygenate your brain, even if whatever type of work you do, if you're engaged, if you have a sense of community, all of these things really matter. So the helpful thing when it comes to nutrition and lifestyle is that if we know now that the brain can adapt and change, we also know that if we start to make some positive small steps, even if we're tweaking, moving towards a healthier lifestyle and healthier foods, that it can impact the brain. It's just that we need to understand it's not overnight and it's not immediate. And as Americans, we tend to be a little impatient. So I think understanding that is important, and that we know, for example, that the gut microbiome takes about 28 days to start healing. So you may not notice something immediately, but if you're starting on a path of helping to heal yourself, you may actually notice some changes in a week, but for some overall healing, the guidance is around 30 days to about a month. So, starting
What
there.
you're saying is that a 30-day reset is a great place
Is in
to
order.
start.
Actually, yes.
I love that
That's a
too,
good way
because
to reset your gut. I didn't even think
we
about
talk
it.
we
You
talk
set us up
about
with that one.
we talk about how, you're exactly right. Like in America, where we feel like there's this like silver bullet, or what we're doing right now is affecting us right now. And Whitney and I talk about like these 30 days are not just impacting these 30 days, they're impacting many, many, many days yet to come. And that helps inspire me that like I'm setting a foundation for my current and future self. So I just got a ping from the team to get to Q&A, because I know we could talk to you forever, Dr. Uma. And we actually had a beautiful conversation on the Sakara Life podcast. So you can hear more of our conversation there. But we got some really beautiful questions from all of you. So we wanted to try and get to a couple in these last 10 minutes. So let's see. The first one is from Louisa in Miami, neighbor to you, Whit. So first she says, and by the way, Dr. Mo, like I think these questions are mostly for you, I think, but Whitney and I will chime in where relevant or whatever.
I would love that. Thank you.
So, okay, she says, the first week I felt a bit hungry, but I felt great. Second week, I wasn't really hungry. I felt more full than normal, and I experienced some headache and increased thirst. Today's the last day of the second week for me, and I'm starting to feel more balanced and energized. Can you explain the cycles of the body that may go through during a reset and how to respond?
I think that each of our bodies is different. Acknowledging that and understanding that is important. So if what's happening to your body may not be happening to mine. The second is that your response to food is based on your very unique microbiome. At first, it might be that your body is just sort of adjusting to eating differently, to more of a concentration of those delicious nutrients, receiving a little bit more fiber maybe than you were eating, but also the phytonutrients, the vitamins and minerals. So I think that whatever is going on in the healing and alteration of your microbiome is probably what's informing those symptoms. And it sounds like you're going through it in a slow and steady way. And it doesn't sound like you're uncomfortable, it's just what you've noticed. So I would say stick with it, make sure that you're hydrating enough, that using the guidances of the protocol. And I encourage you to stay with it because it sounds like you're doing a good job.
Yeah, and I felt like you answered this a little bit in the idea of like it takes 28 days.
Yeah.
So, we're so taught that like, okay, I'm on day 2, we're on my results. And um, you know, as the gut is changing, I remember Dr. Hyman came on the podcast and he was like, every bite you take is changing your microbiome. So as you
Mhm.
said, Dr. Uma, like it is an ever evolving ecosystem. And, Louisa, you might feel different next week. And a lot of times what we're feeling in those like, detox experiences or effects is actual, die off of quote bad bacteria. Like as we start to really feed the good bacteria, it's starting to outnumber the bad bacteria, and we call that die off. And that can really give you almost flu-like symptoms. Where you feel the fatigue and that kind of shift from what might have been something like a dysbiosis or an unbalance, shifts to the kinds of bacteria that are signaling the good things that we talked about earlier that can really lead to brain health. What were you going to say? What?
And I'll just weigh in that I actually hear this quite often from people just starting out on Sakara, if this is your first time, that the first week, it can be quite a transition if your diet looked very different before. If you were living on the 5 major food groups that most Americans live on, which are bread, meat, cheese, coffee, and alcohol, then shifting to a fully plant-based diet is going to be not just a big change on you and your mental state of this change in your life, but also on your microbes. Like Danielle and Dr. Uma were saying. So those microbes that are used to getting the bread and the meat and the cheese and things, if you're not eating those things, they're going to be like, hey, I haven't been fed yet. Isn't it my turn? Hello, I'm hungry. And sending you those messages to your brain, probably up the vagus nerve. And so you'll be like, oh, maybe I need to eat, some bread or some crackers or things like that. But then as that die-off starts to happen and you're building up the microbes that live and thrive on those leafy greens and plant fibers, that voice of like, hey, I want more leafy greens starts to speak up more loudly, and the voice of the other microbes starts to get quieter. So having that shift, your biology will help you, as that transition goes on, to actually shift your cravings into wanting to eat more of those leafy greens and good plants.
Yeah, I think it can be disheartening to learn that your microbiome changes with every bite, but it can also be very empowering because it is constantly adapting to our choices, as Dr. Uma spoke to earlier.
Indeed.
Okay, I'm going to read one more here. So this person says, Holly, I didn't get her name, but she says, I hit rock bottom when I started my Sakara 30-day reset. This is my last week, 4th week. I never expected to feel how I do now. It's such a change that I'm scared to start next week without Sakara. What are my options? How can I continue to be better and to be able to finally, after 4 years of fog and low energy, function? That's so beautiful. I'm so happy that you're here and that you felt that transformation. It warms my heart so much. I would love to hear your take on this, Dr. Uma. I would just say, first of all, to let go of that anxiety. I know it's easier said than done, but there's no wagon to fall off of here. Like, you've learned so much in these 30 days and fueled your body in such a beautiful way that you've earned the right to listen to it. And Whitney spoke to this earlier. It's like the microbes are talking to us. You've built a really healthy gut. And we've been taught that cravings and listening to our body is like something we should avoid. Like if you're, craving chocolate, eat oysters. I don't know. Like here at Sakara, if you're craving something and you've built up that body intelligence to really listen. I do have also more tactical things that I try and do for myself. So one of them is, this is like if I don't have access to Sakara, I'm traveling, whatever, I always try and add greens to every single meal. And it doesn't even matter if you're eating pizza, add some greens to the pizza.
Pizza salad.
Pizza salad. Yeah. Just
Way to
eat
eat a pizza.
at every meal. Like, remember, it's what you're doing every day. It's not what you're not doing every day. So focus on what you are eating and really try and stick to that kind of like plant forward way of eating. And one of the easy things to do is just like add a green to everything you do. The other thing you want to try and do is, to keep up that variety of plants. So we know that, a healthier gut means you're getting lots of different types of plants throughout the week. That leads to a gut that has all sorts of microbes and the diversity that we're looking for. So one of my tricks for that is like at the grocery store, we always like stick to the perimeter, reach for, whole foods, fresh foods, always organic, and try one new thing every time you go to the grocery store. And, maybe it's something that you've eaten before, but you've only had it at a restaurant. Like, I feel like eggplant is sometimes one of those things where like, maybe you've had eggplant parmesan, but like, have you ever cooked it yourself? And to really just try and bring one new thing, at least when you go to the grocery store, into your cart and try and cook it. And that gets us out of this place where we rely on the same meal every single day. And then the last is I just read ingredient labels. And Dr. Uma spoke to this very early on, and it's one of the things that really breaks my heart is when we're really trying to do something good for ourselves, but we end up getting the salad that has, canola oil in the dressing, or, glyphosate covered corn in our salad. It's like, you have learned so much here at Sakara. And by the way, we are still your partner in your health. And there is so much content on our site. We share so much on our personal Instagrams, on Sakara Instagram. There's so much content that can help you in this next chapter. But be an educated consumer. If you are buying something from the grocery store that's, pre-made, like a dressing, etc., read the ingredients, try and stay away from seed oils, reach for organic. Like, those couple shifts will make a really big difference. Did you want to add anything?
I love what you said, and I think one of the things, just from an emotional standpoint, is to work a little bit on maybe or bring in a mindfulness practice to help calm yourself as you go to the next month, because I think you've probably learned so much that can empower you into what you do next. I think that there's the program that you've done, but there are also versions of the meals that you can add back in, or even learn from the recipe book, which can actually help empower you. To Daniel's point, find a new vegetable that you ate in the past month that you haven't prepared at home, and maybe look up the recipe from the website or the blog and try to make it at home, so that you get through. Because I think that will actually help empower you even more. I think when we know that we've tried something that has helped us reset our gut, we're feeling better, how much more powerful can that be if you actually now implement that yourself a little bit. And of course, you can always get other meals to help you from Sakara to help both to help as you're preparing food, but help you through the week as well.
Yeah, such a great reminder. If you need help figuring out what's the right kind of, we'll call it a maintenance program for you, the right number of meals throughout a week, we have a great wellness team, our client services team. Many of them are holistic health coaches, and they can help you to figure out what fits you with your health goals, with your schedule and with your budget. So definitely feel free to reach out to them to customize something for you and your needs. And yeah, great. We have a great cookbook, and also continuing to feed the mind, feed the brain with information, stay part of our community, listen to the amazing podcasts. We have so many great guests like Dr. Uma on the podcast. So continuing to further your education and just be reminded of all of those things that you've learned throughout these 30 days. So let's see. Yep, we're getting the wrap it up sign from our team, and I'm seeing other great questions coming in through the chat. I wish that we'd have time to be able to get to everything. Maybe we can.
Yeah, I told them to put it in the channel.
Okay,
and
great.
We'll try and get to them, especially the chocolate question.
Yes.
But Dr. Gula, thank you so much, not just for, you know, all the incredible work you do in the world, but for really, you know, joining us on this mission to transform lives and put people in the driver's seat of their health. We're so grateful for your partnership and your expertise and your passion, which is so apparent. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Danielle. Thanks, Whitney. It's always lovely to talk to both of you and the community.
And thanks you all so much for joining. Sorry, Whit, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
That's what I was going to say. Thank you to everyone here tonight. It was great. Great to see everyone.
So grateful for you all. You all inspire me just for being here tonight and joining us. And yeah, thank you. Thank you for being here, and we'll see you really soon.